Morning, this is the moderator. Before we get started with our meeting, I'd like to remind committee members and staff who are not speaking to mute their microphone. If we detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I'll provide a brief friendly reminder or simply mute your microphone. And there are members of the public in the audience and meeting minutes are being taken, so I ask members and staff to please identify yourselves before speaking. And to facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx Q&A feature. When the meeting reaches these points in the agenda, public comment will be requested, and I'll turn on the Q&A feature. We will be recording this meeting. It'll make a fairly loud announcement, and then we're ready to get going.
This meeting is being recorded.
And Chair Thompson, the meeting is all yours.
Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Thompson. We're going to get our meeting started. This is the December 2nd, 2021 meeting of the Naturopathic Medical Committee. And Rebecca, can you do a roll call to make sure we have quorum?
Yes, I will. Dr. Dara Thompson.
Present.
Dr. Greta Dimico.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Vera Singleton. Dr. Singleton. Dr. Bruce Davidson.
Present.
Dr. Mina Yoon.
Present.
Ms. Shirley Worrells.
Present.
Dr. Vera Singleton, are you with us?
I'm here, thank you.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Do we have any public members on? I mean, public, not members, but any members of the public?
This is the moderator. At this time, we do not have any public attendees.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we're going to call the meeting to order at this point. I want to start our meeting with just a statement of gratitude. I know how many of our committee members have been working hard on this report. I know you're all very busy with other aspects of your lives and have been taking time out to schedule these meetings, which are more frequent than we normally have, and all the extra time to work on the Sunset Report. So thank you so much for all of that hard work. And a special thank you to Rebecca, who's really gone above and beyond working on this through all sorts of hiccups and various issues, including a severe computer issue last night. We really appreciate you, Rebecca, and we hope you're going to have a day off soon. Because there were some computer issues, members didn't get the final report until this morning. However, I think that the majority, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca, the majority of the edits to the report beyond what we received after the last meeting were grammatical. And so what I'd really like to focus on in this meeting is any more substantive changes that happened in the report, because everyone has had a chance to read through the edited report after the last meeting in detail. So if we've made any substantive changes, we should go over those and make sure everyone agrees with them. Is there anyone who has issue with not going over the grammatical changes that were added? I'm going to pause here and just wait to see if anyone has any disagreement with that.
This is Dr. Dimico. So we have different ways of looking at this per Rebecca's email, and one is to just view it as final, which means it incorporates all the changes made already. So we can kind of see it as a final document, and that will show us if we've missed anything, versus when we're looking at all the changes, we can always flip back to that if we need to, but it gets very complicated for the eye because you're seeing different colors and crossouts and stuff like that. Is that what we're going to be looking at, is maybe the final version, so that we can scan over that and make sure we're not missing anything?
Yes, I believe my understanding is that we're looking at the final document and that she sent it to us with the option to look at the changes if people wanted to go back and see what changes were made. Rebecca, would you agree that the majority of the changes were grammatical and not substantive? I know that I actually did make some substantive changes in the historical section, which we can go through briefly with people. But as far as the other edits, you're the one who actually saw all of them. Could you give us some feedback on that?
That's absolutely correct. The majority of the changes were just grammatical, commas here, thems, and that kind of thing. So there were a couple of areas that there were some substantive changes, so we will go over that. And like Greta said, I think the best way to do this at this time is to go through it with showing no markup. If we have a question, I will put the markup on so that you guys can see what we did in that area. It's just going to be easier for us to kind of go through it and our eyes won't get all crossed. So yeah, that's I think the best plan today.
So
all right, so I'm going to go ahead, and if it's okay with you, Chair Thompson, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, moderator, if that's okay.
I just wanted to make sure, Dr. Dimico, did you have something else you wanted to say? It sounded like you started a statement and then stopped.
Oh, if we're looking at the final version and we see a missing space or a period, I think it should be okay to say it, because those are new things that we didn't go over before, because the final version will have incorporated everything we caught previously. That's okay.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. And we can also, if we get to the end of this meeting and decide we want to approve the document, we can approve it, I believe, and certainly Sabina, let me know if is Sabina on today? Yeah. Let me know if this is not true, but I think we can approve it and allow for any non-substantive changes. So a final grammar check, which is never a bad idea.
Correct.
Great. All right, Rebecca, go ahead.
Okay, and I think Dr. Davidson has his hand raised, so I'll go ahead and go to him really quick first.
Thank you. Hi. Yes, so I appreciate your desire to make it easy on the eyes to see the document. Me personally, I need to be able to look at what the edits were. So I guess the best thing for me to do would be just to keep the document open on my desktop and switch back and forth. But I'm going to need to look at the actual edits in order to be able to comment on the draft.
Okay, that's fine. And like I said, I can go back and forth on my side as well. So just let me know if you want to slow down and see something. Other than that, I'm kind of going to go through it section by section like we did last time. I think that's just going to be the easiest way to kind of move forward through this and get this done today. Again, if there are any grammatical changes, if you see a comma that needs to be made, anything like that, we can make it today. But if we start getting really down to the wire, I would ask that the grammatical changes like commas and colons and that kind of thing, that we can go through it after the meeting today. I can do a one-on-one with Dr. Dimico. She's wonderful when it comes to that kind of thing. So, and we do have that ability to make those changes tomorrow and get this over to the editor. So we can go ahead and move forward with this. And I do believe that there is one public member on the line now. So I'm not sure if we wanted to check for public comment really quick before we move forward.
Thank you. If we could, moderator, if we could have a call for any public comment.
Certainly, and we have opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx so that if anyone has any public comment on the agenda items, we can take that by looking for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Click that, and in the text box, put "I would like to make a comment." And we are sharing instructions on the screen. Give you just a moment in case you're having problems locating that. And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that portion?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Rebecca, you can open up your version. I think those of us who want to see the edited version have that open on our end as well.
Wonderful, great, thank you so much. All right, and moderator, do I have the ability to share now?
Yes, you do. You would share the file, or no, share the application.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. And at this time, I don't have the ability to see raised hands or anything. So if anybody has a hand raised, moderator, would you just let me know so that I can not miss anybody?
Certainly.
Move forward. Thank you.
Rebecca, can you make that as wide or large as possible on your screen, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So for section 1, were there any changes that anybody wanted to make at this time? There were a couple of edits that we made here. I'll show really quick. So some of this information was just kind of edited for just more for clarity and flow.
Yeah, this is Dr. Thompson. I was responsible for the majority of these edits, and again, I don't think any of them really changed the content. It was more just making the wording seem simpler. I did remove a couple of sentences that I felt like, although accurate, were unnecessary. So if people feel like they need to go through that in more detail, we can absolutely do so, because I do think it's the area where we made the largest actual text changes for this version. I think it hadn't really been looked at or edited for several years as far as just, the original historical information. So I just wanted to, do a couple things there.
Great.
This is the moderator, and Mina Yoon has hand raised.
Yes, Mina.
Sorry, I just did notice on the top that instead of, there's a J-E instead of he. I think it's on the first line. And I know that's more grammatical, and Dr. Dimico will most likely hit that. But, you see, oh, yep. Through close observation and discovery, he sought to eliminate the causes of disease.
Okay, thank you. There we go. All right. Okay, let's go to the next section. This was changed a little. I'm not sure if you need to see what was actually changed, but I can just show you that we just deleted, there are little things here and there that were changed. Here we just kind of took out the information from back in 2004 that really didn't make any difference in the context. There was a suggestion by Dr. I believe it was Dr. Davidson, about adding more information about the additional staff. So I did add that in 2013, a new officer was appointed and followed by the hiring of one analyst level staff in July of 2014. Here is just a little bit of information that was just kind of reworked. This area is the same. It was just kind of reworded a little bit. Are there any questions yet? Dr. Davidson, I see your hand is up, I think.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just back to that addition. Thank you for making that addition about the current staffing situation. So I just wanted to, in terms of the continuity there, so the previous paragraph ends with a statement about the lack of staff has hindered the efforts of the committee to carry out the mandates of the act, and you did add in a statement about the actual current staffing, which I think is important because although this year has been a particular challenge with regard to, everything that's been going on with the staff, but the point is that there is an additional staff member. So is it fair to say that statement above there that is still relevant? The lack of staff has hindered the efforts of the committee to carry out the mandates of the act. So should that now be the last sentence underneath what you added? Because it continues to be the case, despite the fact that there is, in addition to yourself, the staff person, in order to finish up that section with the same conclusion?
Sure, we can definitely do that. Would you like to remove it from here and add it to the bottom, or do you want to restate at the bottom?
Well, the only bottom that I'm talking about is that little section there after the new statement that you added, which says in 2013, and there have been the new executive officer was appointed and there have been no additional staff added since that time. I guess my statement or my question is that, so I guess that conclusion is still valid despite the staffing level that's been increased slightly. So if that's the conclusion of this little section, then perhaps we should put that sentence after what you've added rather than before it.
Perfect. We can definitely do that.
Or the continuing lack of staff. Because basically the point here, if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the requirements, the volume of the work that's required to be done across all of the aspects of the responsibilities of the office is such that it's very difficult to keep up.
That is correct, yes.
So that conclusion is still relevant, despite the fact.
It is still relevant because
Right.
we've grown, I want to say we've grown about 30-something%, yet we have not had any additional staff. So yeah, we are definitely starting to outgrow the workload in this office.
So that's an important, point to be emphasized with regard to the report to the legislature. So
absolutely,
it seems to me as though that's still the conclusion, and we have in fact acknowledged that there's additional staff, but it's still the case. So that's all that I wanted to suggest there.
Yes, actually that works well. Thank you. Okay. Is everybody okay with that change? All right. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move forward.
Rebecca, I have a question about that. Would it also be helpful, because we're saying that, that you have the additional staff, but that it's still hindered, to put in some small statement about the fact that the staff has been on leave for such a long time?
So we do go into that down in kind of the staffing issues. So I think maybe we can leave it for that, because this is just supposed to be a little bit of a brief history of kind of what's been going on. And then I do have the confer at the page 33. So it's up to you guys. If you want to add it here, we can, but we do go into detail down in the body of the issues of what's going on here.
Okay, I think as long as you're referencing the other section that goes into that, I think it's fine.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward. So here, let me see, I'm just going to go down to where we were. Are there any other questions before we move on?
This is Dr. Dimico. And if you guys, by the way, if you want to use the hand raise function, Dr. Thompson, you might need to manage that, because remember that Rebecca can't see if people raise their hands in her current screen situation.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I just wanted to mention on right above education, let's see, at the very bottom of page 5, the paragraph that starts several licensed naturopathic doctors. Would you, if you don't mind, would you please change Bastyr University - San Diego campus to the San Diego campus of Bastyr University? That was me who put it like that in the first place. And then after working this document many times, I decided to do it differently, and I think it just flows better. So the San Diego campus, the San Diego campus, and campus should not be capitalized, of Bastyr University. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, any other suggestions here? All right, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. All right, so the education and training, there were a couple of things here. So as you guys may have remembered, this used to be the actual statute, so it was listed 1, 2, and then B, C, because this section here was kind of part of A. So what I did was I just made it into a bullet so that it was easier to read and nobody was wondering, hey, where's A? So thank you so much, Dr. Thompson, for that, bringing that to my attention too. All right, moving right along. This section right here, I wanted to bring to your attention. There was a suggestion that maybe we may not need this, or we just wanted to check to see if the members still wanted this section in that lists the following career opportunities for graduates of naturopathic medicine.
Sorry, my hand is not working, but this is Dr. Yoon. Yeah, I wasn't too thrilled with this section. I'm not quite sure why. I just feel like it really didn't give much information. I just felt like it was just in there. It didn't really have any bearing, but maybe it does. I don't know how anybody else feels about it.
I agree. This is Dr. Thompson. I just felt like, I think maybe the purpose was to be like, look at all the things that naturopathic doctors can do, but I think that it's largely unnecessary and to some extent limiting. Like, naturopathic doctors can do lots more things than that, but so I personally would vote for taking it out.
Okay. Everybody okay with removing this section?
I agree. This is Dr. Dimico.
Is there anybody that's not okay with removing this section?
This is Dr. Singleton. To play devil's advocate, we have a lot of content later around what the limitations are. So if this provides any greater context about the opportunities that might be available to someone who has no idea, that's reading about what naturopathic medicine students, graduates can do, then I would suggest leaving it in. And if we don't feel like it's relevant and they don't need to know, then we could take it out. But again, remember, I think when it was put in, the intent was to give the breadth about the types of opportunities that are available. And again, this is to someone that has no clue about what naturopathic medicine graduates can do. If it strengthens our argument, let's leave it. If it weakens it, let's take it out.
This is Dr. Yoon. I personally feel like it weakens it because when we're talking about doing licensure or tracking our licensees, a lot of what we're doing is looking for people who are practicing medicine. And when you're talking about somebody who's a wellness entrepreneur or a public speaker, we're not actually looking to see whether or not are they practicing within their scope. Are they able to prescribe under the formulary, or having trouble being able to do care under a ND MD agreement.
Well, and these things are here because people aren't able to practice under their full scope.
Yeah, this is Dr. Thompson. I agree with Dr. Yoon. I feel like there's an overall reading of this area that portrays naturopathic doctors more as, kind of like, yeah, not as much as medical professionals, which is unfortunate because of course we can do all of these things and that's great. But yeah, I do agree that I think it weakens our case to some degree.
So why don't we go ahead, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do a deletion, and if for some reason we get down into the weeds of this further down this report and you guys feel that maybe we may need to bring it back in or maybe put it down somewhere else, we can always do that because it's always, I can always reverse that. So do you want to go ahead and delete it for now and move forward and see if we need to add it back later?
That's a great option, Rebecca. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So moving right along. This is just about the approved naturopathic colleges. Not a whole lot has changed in terms of what they're teaching. The first year, second year, third year, we all went through this last time and there's been no changes. All of the hours are still correct. I did update the 2020 enrollment, and I did finally get in touch with CNMC and Boucher, and they have given us their combined total enrollment of 830 students this term, or this past year. And so we went ahead and updated this information here. Just a couple of grammatical changes in here. Okay. All right. And all this stuff here was just kind of grammatical stuff. We added doctor of osteopathy with the medical doctor, so we're not leaving anybody out. We removed the per a recommendation.
Rebecca, can you just pause there for a moment, scroll back up to these sections that we inserted to clarify? I think these are really important because the way we word these could lead to interpretation of scope. So did everyone look through these and agrees that these, cover what we need to as far as explaining these areas that were ambiguous? I thought they did a good job, but I just want to make sure that other people looked over them as well. I thought it was a really important section. Also,
This
Rebecca,
is Dr.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. This is Dr. Dimico. I put a comment on the second one. If this is the original language, removing a foreign body from superficial tissues means taking out a splinter also. So I found that very surprising. You know, according to this, if we interpret it, we can cut open the tissue, we can remove things that were produced by the body and close them without stitches, but we can't take a splinter out or a piece of glass.
See, I read this to mean that we could remove, it says repair and care of incidental superficial lacerations and abrasions, except suturing, but it doesn't say except removal of foreign bodies.
Okay, it says except suturing and removal. So we should, it sounds like it's everything coming after except is accepted to me when I read
What
it.
was the intention here? Like, what's the original language in the Business and Professions Code?
So let's see here. I can bring that up really quick, I believe.
I'd hate to think I'm violating my scope every time I remove a splinter from one of my kids.
All right. Hold on one second. I'm getting there. All right. So 3640. So 3640 C5 says that naturopathic doctors can repair and care incidental to superficial lacerations and abrasions except suturing. And then 3640 C6 says that NDs may remove foreign bodies located in the superficial tissue.
So why don't we just add in,
I mean, just
we
the
can do,
word may could,
it may remove,
yeah, may
or we could
remove.
or we could separate it, the codes, and say that, you know, C5 states that they can repair and that C6 states that they may remove.
This is Bruce. I support that.
There you go.
So states,
Oh, no, that doesn't make sense. Okay, it should be removal.
oh no, I would say C6 states that they may remove.
Yeah, if you just take the of out, it should work. And states that they shouldn't be in quotes, it would be the descriptor. So the quotation mark would start at may. But may
Let
remove
me
foreign
see.
bodies located in superficial tissues.
It would actually be removed, but it's not even the same because it should be removal of foreign bodies located in superficial tissues. I think this should be okay.
Yeah, because you're not quoting it, so it doesn't have to be this exact word.
That's fine.
Right.
Thank you. That's a great relief to me.
That's perfect. Okay, any other comments here or changes needed? Okay, and we'll go ahead and move.
This section, and these are prohibited from using. Do we want to say something in, like, I felt like when I read this before, it had restated something about Chinese herbs being part of the pharmacopoeia. I'm just, we pared it down. I just want to make sure it's clear enough.
Here, let me show you what it was. This is what it was, there are many herbs that are used within Chinese and Asian medicine, including Chinese herbal medicines used within naturopathic medicine and are allowed within the naturopathic doctor's scope of practice. And I was told that this is what you would rather have. So if you would rather have the other ones, let me know and I can change it back.
And these are privileged using traditional Chinese methods of diagnosis and treatment, not the use of specific substances. Do we need to say something like including Chinese herb? I mean, like, I just want to make sure that this is really clear as far as botanicals.
This is Dr. Dimico. I think the explanation makes it pretty clear because we can't change the one above because it's actually the wording of the statute. But this makes it clear that it's about the method of arriving to the diagnosis and treatment versus the actual substance itself. But I'm open to anybody else's clarification or refinement.
I agree that the explanation was too wordy, but this is good. I just wonder if we need like just a small qualifier or something there. I don't know. What do other people think on this?
This is Dr. Yoon. As an acupuncturist, I think this is well written the way that it is, because I think that if you get into the herbs, like when we're talking about Chinese medicine, a lot of it overlaps and you're going to have, I think, more problems the more wording that you put in there.
Right. You're going to paint yourself into a corner. Okay, great. I appreciate that. As an acupuncturist, that's super helpful.
Great. So we're going to go ahead and leave it as is for now.
Yes, I've been
Okay.
mollified. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead and just make this bigger for you. All right. So let's see here. Let me just change this so that it's all similar. Okay.
This is Dr. Dimico.
Okay.
Before you scroll, yes, that where you just went, surgeons.
Yes.
Go
So
ahead.
surgeons, we're going to take this out. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Oh. Bruce, did you have a question?
I was just responding to your question. I agree that the word surgeons is not needed there.
Great. Okay, removed. All right. Okay, and then we're going into the California law restricts naturopathic doctors from practicing medicine to the full extent of their education and training compared to other states. But licensed naturopathic medicine, California has one of the most restrictive scopes of practice. So this is just, I know that this was that area that we had, I believe Dr. Yoon went in and kind of reordered everything, took some of the stuff out that we didn't need, and just really kind of tightened this section up. So were there any questions or comments about this section here? Dr. Davidson?
Thanks. Yeah. So I just want to, again, I've made this comment in the past, I think, but I just want to reiterate this. And I just want to say that the reason that I'm bringing this up is more, I guess, just to play devil's advocate with regard to the responses or the reactions that we may get to a close reading of the text. So here, I guess I continue to feel as though the statement in the first bullet that says, the third sentence, it says, many find the laws regarding the furnishing of drugs restrictive and feel unable to adequately provide primary care, and this can cause licensees to move out of California. So many is a qualitative word, and there's really no data here that says how big of an issue this is. So we're saying it's many, but how many is it? We don't know. We can't say how many it is. We can't say what proportion it is. You know, to me, it expresses our opinion. It doesn't really express a fact.
Do we have some sort of survey that gave us this information? Can we say something like our licensees report that many of them find something like that? So we at least have a source on it. Greta, you had something to say.
Sorry, my comment is for further down.
Okay. So I'm not sure that, we do have one study that kind of played onto this, and, you know, I believe that 30% of our total licensee population actually took that study or took that survey. And of those, I want to say it was 300 and something, 174 of them made comments that they were leaving California or plan to leave California because of restrictions of one or the other. So that's about half of the 30% of the folks that took it. I know that if I go into a room with 10 NDs and I ask 10 NDs if they believe that it's too restrictive here, every single one of them would say yes. But that's just that I've been with the committee for going on 9 years now, and the comments that I get are always the same. I've never had anybody come up to me and say, wow, the scope here is so great. I love it so much. Never, not once. So there are a couple of folks that are, all they do is like traditional type of naturopathic medicine. They don't incorporate drugs. They don't do a whole lot of anything else except that. So for them, it is okay. But I can tell you there's only a handful of those people. So I'm not sure how you'd want to make this change, but I do want to state that the majority of the people, and I can't give a definitive number, but I can tell you that the majority of our licensee population feel that we have too restrictive of a scope.
This is Dr. Dimico. We have two different points that we're making here. So I might suggest that we could say in our most recent survey of licensees, half or over half said that they were considering or planning to leave California because of the restrictions, and that the committee is aware from contact with licensees that people feel constrained or something like that. And that way you're basically saying, where did you get this idea from and what the result is.
Okay.
I agree. This is Bruce. I agree with that approach. I think it would be helpful to cite the results of that study. As Rebecca knows, I've been emailing with her a little bit about some of my concerns about those results, but and that mainly relates to the fact that the response rate, while the response rate overall was about 35% of licensees, which is a decent response rate, big picture, the response rate on individual survey questions varied tremendously. And some individual survey questions received, very, very few responses, and others received, almost all the responses of the ones who responded to the survey already. So this happens to be one of the items that received a very high response rate. And I think as a result, and I'll make comments more about this as we get to that point, that we have to be careful about using all of those questions here. I think we should only use the questions that had, a response rate to the question that reflects the response rate to the survey. So anyway, where I'm going with this is that was, as I recall, one of the items that got, pretty much the responses from everybody who took the survey, right, Rebecca?
That is correct, yes.
So that this may be a good place to cite that, yes. And it was about half. I know late last night you sent me the tally of the yeses and the nos. It was close to half, I guess, right?
Yes, it was 174 yes and 177 no out of the 30% of the licensee population that took the actual survey. So I believe that there were, I want to say there were 361 participants, and I'm just trying to recall because I don't have it right in front of me. And there were 13 people that skipped the question. So
Right.
either they were NA, so it didn't apply to them, or maybe they were retired and they were just taking, you know, the survey. So that's about, yeah, it was about half though.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that here. I think that would make a difference. Thanks.
Okay.
So this is Dr. Dimico. Perhaps what we could do is say, don't put it here, Rebecca, because the first
Okay.
point we're making is that they feel restricted and unable to adequately provide primary care. So we could put here, the committee hears on a regular basis, or the committee's experience, you know, just to say staff has noticed this is a big issue. That's good enough. You don't have to have a study for that. And then the second one could actually be another sentence. So after the semicolon,
Okay.
you
I'm
could say
sorry. You said
most.
there was.
And here you can say many, or you can say most, or whatever you actually think, because you're representing you, the staff, what you have noticed, right? You're just authentically representing what you hear all the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Then after the semicolon, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would say that at least 7 out of 10 people that I talk to are a little concerned about the scope here, and it would be the one reason.
You could say the majority that have contact with our office. And that kind of accounts for the fact that the squeaky wheels are the ones that are unhappy, so you're going to hear more from them.
Okay. Let's see here, on a regular basis, that.
You could say the majority of NDs with whom the committee has had contact.
Sorry, I just lost my place. NDs with who the committee
With whom?
has, or with the staff.
Yeah. There you go. Has had contact. Just no with. And then take off the beginning part of the sentence. So just start the sentence with the majority.
So you want this here taken off?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the majority of NDs with whom the staff you could say has had contact, if you wanted to say it in the past, find the laws regarding the furnishing of drugs restrictive, and feel unable to adequately provide primary care, then you can have a period in our most recent survey of licensees. Nearly half stated that they are planning or considering, if that's correct.
Yes.
And then take out the next few words and then to move out of.
Oh, I see.
Moving out of.
Okay.
And then everyone else can see if that sounds good to you guys.
Yeah. Does that look okay with everybody? And more importantly, Bruce, does that make you feel better? You know, coming from a data background to just make you feel a little bit better about that statement?
Well, yeah, and again, I'm not just trying to be the squeaky wheel here out of principle, but I'm just trying to imagine what kind of critique or criticism, the legislature or the legislative staff might raise. So I think that is greatly improved by making reference to the study here and the results of that study. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, because we really do need to see it from all sides. So that was a great comment. Okay, well, let's go ahead and move to the next bullet. Scope of practice for naturopathic doctors has changed little. So this is just basically kind of giving the CLIA wave testing information. Naturopathic doctors find it difficult to secure prescriptive oversights from physicians. And these are fully trained in minor office procedures, including local anesthesia and suturing.
This is Dr. Dimico.
Dimico.
Yeah, on the last edits I sent in, I actually changed this. I don't think it got incorporated. The last paragraph here. This sentence, this greatly limits even the ability of the doctor to biopsy a lesion, should be changed, because we can, with our new understanding, having looked into the layers of this, we can biopsy a lesion, we can't suture it. And I actually wrote new wording on my last, I worked really hard on this on my last edit, so somehow it didn't come through. I can try to open up the document and see what it was if you want.
Yeah, can you? And then I'll just put it in here. Let me see if I can actually find it really quick.
Thank you, Greta. I just want to say, I think these sorts of small edits are so important, because what we don't want to do is somehow in our sunset interpret our scope in a more restrictive way than it was written, such that that becomes the interpretation.
Okay, let's see here. So this, can you guys see the new document that just pulled up? This
It's very small.
Okay, I'm going to make it bigger. This is what Greta passed along. So let me go back down to that section. Let's see here. All right. So here we are, I believe. Let's see. Okay, this is the one here. We'll take this.
So that's not actually completely right, because I didn't fix that in there. I'm sorry, I thought I did. So
no, it's okay. I can pull the section. So let me go ahead and I'll put this here.
But what I'm saying is, in the one that you showed that I did, still hasn't corrected.
Okay, so that was the last version I got from you, but it's probably more close than what the other one was. So do you just want to go ahead and fix this one up here?
Right. So if we can just say, like, this potentially limits instead of greatly. I could have sworn I wrote I think I wrote, or maybe I wrote this later in the document. This potentially limits the doctor. I'm going to have to look through my document, but I wrote about if the doctor suspects a suspicious lesion and it needs sutures in order to biopsy, they can't do it. But I wanted to be clear that it was the sutures that was the limiting, not the biopsy.
Yes, I do believe that that's down, if I remember right, down in the report later. Let me see here. Let me add this section here.
What if we say this potentially limits which lesions a doctor can biopsy? Something like, because this isn't coming out right, because they're unable to biopsy if sutures are required, or something like that, which very much reinforces that we can do biopsies but we cannot do sutures. So this potentially limits which lesions can be biopsied.
So this potentially limits the ability of the doctor to biopsy a lesion.
It's not even just which, because you probably are going to use anesthesia for any biopsy. So it could potentially be all.
I mean, I would say I don't agree that you need to use anesthesia for any biopsy necessarily. And I think that the risk of it being interpreted that we can't do biopsies is more significant than making the point about the anesthesia, which we already kind of made. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So for some reason, my brain is going to, but they may not currently use anesthesia. Let's leave it open to this thing being corrected.
Okay, I'm sorry, where do you want currently put?
That's in the second sentences, but they may not currently use anesthesia unless they have a supervisory protocol in place. And they may not
suture. And take out and they may not and just put or.
No, I think it's and, because the supervisory agreement allows them to use anesthesia, but the suturing of the wound is prohibited for everyone.
Right, okay.
Right. Okay.
And then we're on this last sentence where it says this potentially limits the ability of the doctor to biopsy a lesion. So, and I'm saying,
I just wonder if we need to have that sentence there at all. And the reason I say that is this is not just about biopsies, it's also about injuries. You know, somebody splits their scalp open and you need to close it with sutures.
I mean, that's a great
Because
option. I'm always for streamlining things and just taking stuff out that's extraneous.
And if we are referring to the section where we describe this in more detail, because I do remember writing about this point later on, if that section covers it, then we can potentially just take out that whole last bit there.
I love that option. Is anyone opposed to that? Yeah, I don't see anyone's hand raised but Greta's.
Sorry, I'm going to put it down.
No worries.
Yeah, because this is just a list of rights in a sense without really going into it yet, I think.
So I'm going to
so
go
can
ahead
you
and remove.
Yeah, so maybe a note to yourself if you don't remember it, that just make sure that that section discusses our point more thoroughly. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll go, and I'll go ahead and put the section here later. So we don't take up the time. Okay, there were no changes to this one here. Most of the healing arts boards in California have no working knowledge of the scope of practice of naturopathic doctors. And somebody did bring this up that, you know, this was true way back in the day during our last sunset, but is it still the case? And I can say that it is unfortunately and sadly still the case. We have a lot of times where the medical board will call us and ask what our NDs are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. We have some people that call us and they don't even know what naturopathic medicine is. They've never heard of us before. So we definitely have a lot of other programs and other professionals that just don't understand or even know what naturopathic medicine and naturopathic doctors are and what they do. So these were added here. Were there any questions or comments on these sections?
Can you clarify what section and part we're in?
Let's see here. We are going to be on page 13, and we are on the 2 bullets right after most of the healing arts boards in California have no working knowledge of the scope of practice.
So we have numbers and bullets in this section. So just
Yeah. So there's
look
no
at that
numbers.
later.
Yeah, there's no numbers here. This is just bullets.
Gotcha.
Usually the numbers are only used for the actual questions that came in the original report.
Okay.
Those are numbered, and then if there's something that, of course, is a statute or that we're providing a list of something, we may have used numbers for that.
California is misspelled in the last word of the last bullet point under this subsection.
In this paragraph up here?
It starts out, it's the one that starts out as a result. Keep going to the end of that one.
Okay. There you go. Okay, any questions or concerns with those 2 bullets? Dr. Davidson.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for putting that last sentence in where we just corrected California. That I think my comment to Rebecca during this process was that that particular bullet point talks about inquiries or investigations that are dated before the period of time of this review. So I wanted to make sure there was some statement in this section that emphasized the continuation of this issue even now. Because again, the question I think that we could be asked in, by the legislature as well, that was a long time ago, so things are better now, huh? And so that statement, I think, ensures that we believe that continues to be the issue.
Great.
This is Dr. Dimico. I would probably want to change that word practice in California to do, what naturopathic doctors are allowed to do, because we are allowed to practice. And when you're ready, I have questions about the next paragraph.
Okay, I'm ready for the next paragraph.
So the next paragraph, the title says most health insurance providers don't cover or reimburse naturopathic care, even with the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. And then it talks about Medi-Cal. And Medi-Cal is separate from the Affordable Care Act, except that it was expanded under the ACA. It is an insurance provider, but it's not a direct result of the statement above it. That's one example of non-coverage, but there are other examples too with private insurance carriers.
This is Dr. Should we just get rid of even with the implementation of the Affordable Care Act? So we just leave the heading as most insurance providers do not cover or reimburse naturopathic care?
I think that works, especially because the Affordable Care Act, I think this may have been originally worded when that was very new implementation, and it's been changed a lot and it's older now. I would also say this, Dr. Thompson, that it's not, I don't know if we can word this in here, but it's not necessarily that insurance providers don't cover naturopathic care. I think that many of them are supposed to, they're just not doing it, So again, it's a lack of knowledge on their part, where they don't even know that they're supposed to be covering naturopathic care. Because there are very few policies in my experience that prohibit naturopathic providers. It's more that they don't have any stipulation for it at all. And then it just depends who's interpreting the bill.
Right.
And I think another point is that if they're covered under out-of-network providers, which has a separate deductible than in-network. So you might have an in-network deductible of $1,000, but your out-of-network might be $10,000. So people don't use their insurance because of that, because we're not in network. I find that's more often the case, and they're like, okay, whatever, I guess I have to pay cash. And I almost don't want to make too fine a point on it, because the states in which naturopathic doctors have been covered as in-network have lost a lot of income because they start controlling what the doctor can earn. So I want to be careful about what we're complaining about.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't think we should bring up the in-network, out-of-network issue for that reason. In-network providers just don't get much reimbursement. So a lot of MDs don't even practice in network for that reason. I think that my point was just, again, we don't want to state something such that it restricts us more than we're already restricted. And it's my understanding that as primary care providers in California, we should be covered out of network on anyone who has a plan that has out of network coverage, but that's not what's actually happening.
I'm sorry, please
Right.
don't take that phrase out. I was going to comment that the majority of that paragraph does in fact address the Affordable Care Act. And I think that should be the paragraph. Yeah, there you go. That paragraph should be split in two. I think that having the comment on the header there about the Affordable Care Act is relevant and should remain. And that paragraph should be split in two. And then the first bullet should be the one that starts, the sentence starts current U.S. healthcare policy, and the second bullet should be the Medi-Cal issue, because they're two separate issues, perhaps.
I like that. And we might actually just say the second paragraph is, by way of example, a Medi-Cal enrollee who chooses
I'm sorry, by way of example.
comma,
Mhm.
and then take out everything after that up to Medi-Cal and put in a Medi-Cal enrollee, because Medi-Cal is always only in California anyway, who chooses an ND as a primary care provider, must double up.
Care provider.
And this is a little, this is a little bit tricky when we say chooses an ND as their primary care provider, because that is a term that means different things. On the one hand, it means who's your main doctor. But in insurance, it means who's the primary doctor under this policy that guides your referrals and more advanced care. So that's a little confusing. So we could say a Medi-Cal enrollee who would like to see a naturopathic doctor as their primary provider, why don't we say, instead of PCP, because you can't currently be a PCP with Medi-Cal.
So do you want me to remove the primary care provider part?
I would,
What if we
right
say,
now,
It's usually, I think, a Medi-Cal enrollee who has an ND as their primary care provider must double up on doctor visits to comply with the Medi-Cal laws, because they pay for the orders, the things that NDs order, but they will not pay for the office visit. So it's really kind of silly, but yeah, so.
We just don't want to lead the reader to believe that how that could, I liked how you said it, but how it could be read is that I'm in Medi-Cal, I picked an ND as my primary care provider, and now they're making me see another doctor. That's not actually how it works. It means that I already have a relationship with an ND that I want to see outside of Medi-Cal. So we might want to even explain it a little further, like naturopathic doctors can make prescriptions and write orders for Medi-Cal patients, but not actually we just want to spell it out, because it's kind of hard to make that clear. What does everybody else think?
This is Dr. Yoon. Just going back to what Dr. Thompson had said, I just want to step back and kind of look at this this overall issue that we put in here, because this category is about the issue of practicing naturopathic medicine. And I'm not quite sure whether or not the fact that we're not covered actually affects the practice of naturopathic medicine. It may affect the consumers in the fact that they have to pay more out of pocket. But I'm trying to, I guess, wrap my head around more of what we need to convey in this section here regarding the health insurance.
Can I say that Dr. Thompson, in that first title sentence that's underlined, if we change the wording from do not cover or reimburse naturopathic care to most insurance providers fail to reimburse for naturopathic care, I think that is more the issue that we're dealing with. And then after reimburse, it would be for. And I absolutely hear what you're saying, Dr. Yoon. I think it does affect the practice because of the need to, it delays care and it requires referral to other providers in certain situations. And that's where it really affects care. I know you've probably experienced this as well, where you have someone and they need a service that you could absolutely provide, but you have to send them to someone else because of insurance coverage. And that's not just a financial issue, that's a delay in care, especially given how long it takes to get in to see certain types of providers right now.
Yeah. And I can tell you that the insurance issue was actually one of the common responses to why our licensees would be leaving the state.
We haven't mentioned that elsewhere though in the document, have we?
No, it wasn't one of the top three, so we didn't mention it at all, I don't believe, but it was definitely up there in, I would say, the top 5.
So we could make that a bullet point of its own to say that this issue is was in the top 5 reasons licensees leave the state. So, say in our most recent survey or wherever you got that from, so that we're not just stating it out of in thin air. And we may want to change the bullet point with Medi-Cal. And I'm just talking right now, I don't have it all worked out in my brain, just up where make it a bullet point to say, just make it a separate bullet point or even a separate section, because this is an issue. is despite being able to be covered for tests and prescriptions with Medi-Cal, office visits are still not covered to naturopathic doctors.
I'm sorry, despite being able to,
despite coverage for
What if we say,
labs and prescriptions?
what if we say instead, despite, although naturopathic doctors can order labs and medications under Medi-Cal, office visits are still not covered.
Good. And do you want to say after that about the double up issue, or do you want to just let them conclude that on their own?
I think that if we're trying to replace the paragraph right on top of it, which I think is a good idea, that we should at least say something about the financial burden that that places on the consumers, because as a board, that's really our.
So what about which limits, if we did at the end of that sentence, comma, which limits their ability to service underserved populations?
this one here?
Mm-hmm.
If you guys agree with that notion.
Yeah, I think which greatly limits access to NDs by underserved populations. How's that?
That's good. And then we'll take out the one above it.
Yeah, if we just remove that paragraph.
This one?
The whole by way of example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's make sure it makes sense under that section. The point and then the subpoints.
I think there may be, is there an extra space or is that just a visual illusion I'm having there?
There is, but it's because comments are in there. So after I take everything out, I can actually go in here and actually format it nicely so it'll look fine. But once we do a no markup, we can take them out at that time. But for now, I'll just keep it so that you guys can see the markup. But
And the
I'll
last point where it says in the most recent study, can we say exactly what that is? Because that's pretty broad. Like in the most in the committee's most recent survey of licensees.
Definitely. Nina, do you have a comment?
No, I don't. I have a problem with my hand.
I share that problem often.
So this is in the committee's most recent prescription and vaccination study. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then we'll spell out prescription. Here you go. Take the E out after the S. In prescription.
I'm sorry.
Prescription, take out the second E there.
There we go.
There you go.
Sorry.
And then can you put, instead of this issue, make it this limitation? And maybe put was instead of is.
Can we say the insurance limitation,
Sure.
or do you just want to keep it as this? Okay.
Yeah, just saying this issue is kind of broad. That's so insurance limitation was.
Okay.
Because it's in the past. Yeah, good.
Perfect. All right. Is there any comments for this section, or are we ready to move forward?
This is Dr. Dimico. I don't remember us, on the last page of the entire document, we have all of our asks. If we could have everything that the committee thinks should be done, do we have anything about this in there? Because I don't think we do. Like, I don't think we have allow Medi-Cal visits to be covered.
We do not, no.
Any reason why we shouldn't, since we're bringing it up as an issue?
Okay, I'm adding it to the list to add to the issues. And we'll add that to the new issues in the...
Okay. And I'm not even sure what to ask regarding private insurers, if there is an ask there, or if we're just trying to make them aware. Do you guys
I think we're trying,
ever...
yeah, making them aware is great. I know it is something that has been a concern with consumers and licensees alike. We do know that with Blue Shield has had to pay out with naturopathic medicine treatments, and then Aetna also is another insurance provider that covers some naturopathic treatments as well. So they are starting to come around, and I think it's the more that the consumer or the patient knows that they can get the stuff covered, and that they go and they, make that case with their insurance provider, the more they start getting those, it'll start becoming, just more standard. But right now, like you said, people don't know that they can even, ask their insurance provider to cover these things. So we did add that information to our website so that they know and that they have the information of how to go and fight the insurance companies to get them to pay up on these ND visits.
So just to be very clear, in terms of what we're reporting and asking the legislature to do for us in regard to this is somehow include us under Medi-Cal. Is that in their power to do?
I'm not sure. I don't know if BMP has the ability to make the changes in health and safety, but at least we would be able to start that conversation and maybe have somebody put it into a bill for us.
Okay, and then we're not asking them to do anything about private insurers. We're just trying to help them continue to be more aware that it's still an issue while it's being worked on in other ways. Got it.
Okay. Were there any other questions before we move forward to the next section? Okay. Hearing none, we will go to the next section. Even though naturopathic doctors are primary care providers, they are not physicians in California and therefore unable to hire nurses, limiting their efficiency and practice.
I think we need to modify this title. Like the issue of not being able to use the term physician really extends to many other issues than, hiring nurses is a huge issue and should be under the bullet points here, but there are a lot of other issues with having to do with physician, which are listed here. So I just think that the title should be changed.
But if we added that and took the rest of this out?
Yeah, I would say barriers in naturopath, in either the practice of naturopathic medicine or in naturopathic care. Why don't we
Does that
say the
work?
practice of naturopathic medicine, just the whole title thing? So in the next sentence, we would want to take out also the inability of NDs to use the title physician, because we're just starting our list there instead of modifying the nursing statement above.
Any changes
I
to that first?
I just want to clarify something here, because I did ask you about this early in the year, Rebecca, and you said we can employ people who are all of these things, but if we are supervising them, they can only practice as naturopathic assistants, correct?
That is correct. So a partner, you could be a partner with an MD in your practice. You can employ them, but you wouldn't be able to give them direct orders. So they would be kind of siloed doing whatever it is that they do, as long as they are allowed to practice without supervision, like a nurse. So yeah, you can hire them, you just can't utilize them as maybe a physician would be able to with nurses and PAs and that type of thing. And with the naturopathic doctors, I know there's somewhere in here that one of you guys had asked me to incorporate that NDs cannot provide orders to nurses or medical assistants. And that is correct, kind of, but naturopathic assistants need to know everything that a medical assistant knows. The statute was copy and pasted directly from their act. So I believe that as long as an ND ensures that the medical assistant has met all of the statute requirements, then they can, at that point, certify their medical assistant as a naturopathic assistant, and it's a done deal. It's not that hard. All they have to do is do their due diligence to make sure that that medical assistant has met all of the requirements, and since they're the exact same, they should. But then the ND would have to certify on their own, letterhead or whatever, that person is a naturopathic assistant, and at that point they would be able to provide orders to them. So I just wanted to give a little clarification there. But
It would be nice not to have to go through that if it's exactly the same.
I know.
I
Right.
mean, we can ask for it still. I mean, we can still point out that that's just necessary burden on the doctor. I mean, we might not get it, and it's okay if we don't, but it's just extra paperwork and time.
This Dr. Thompson, I totally agree with Dr. Dimico on that. And I also just want to be really careful about the wording of this section that says, I don't want to say that we can't give orders to these people. We might have to put a caveat, like unless certified and practicing within the scope of a naturopathic medical assistant, because, we've certainly in our office had medical assistants who have been trained and are practicing as naturopathic medical assistants, but they also have an MA, right? And then, I could see that come up for all sorts of other professions, just as long as, they're practicing within the naturopathic medical assistant scope. It doesn't really matter what their other licensure and certification is. It's not like because they have that licensure and certification, we can't give them an order. We can't give them an order to practice as an MD. Like, we can't say, oh, go do this, which is in your MD scope, but we But if an MD wanted to be a naturopathic medical assistant, we could still give them an order within that scope. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm not, I want to make sure this is actually true, because I went through this with somebody who was a nurse, and I feel like the nursing board didn't look at it that way. It's like, you're bound to the scope of your highest level of training.
Right,
And
but
that
as
does
an
not
M-
include.
That
Go
is
ahead.
true. And an MD would be able to work side by side with an ND. The ND would not be able to provide orders to that doctor. But with the sense of a nurse being there, the ND would absolutely not be able to give the nurse orders, and the nurse cannot work unsupervised, at least in an office with no MD or DO.
And what I was saying is that even if you declared your nurse a naturopathic medical assistant,
Mhm.
they still couldn't, yeah, I guess that's it. I guess they could do those things, right? That the ND has to be, they couldn't act like a nurse at all.
Right. They would not be able to work
Right,
within
okay.
the scope of a nurse, correct?
Right, but my understanding from earlier discussions that we had is they could work as a naturopathic medical assistant even if they're licensed as an RN, as long as they are practicing within the scope of a naturopathic medical assistant.
That is correct.
Right, and I just want to make sure that that's clear in the wording of this.
So why don't we say within the very limited scope of a naturopathic assistant?
Mhm.
Very limited. But we kind of say this again in the next sentence, so we need to look at both of these. And I just wanted to mention along here too that I did some research while working on this, and I want to make sure that we leave it open to all allied health professionals. There is a board of that covers psychiatric, what do they call it? Psychiatric
Technicians?
technicians, yes. And they can receive orders from a huge number of people, even physical therapists, or not physical therapists, but they can get orders from people that with much less licensure than we have. So we want to make sure that we're not just only designating certain things, but that we can, if we do psychological testing in our offices, that we could hire a psychological, a psych technician to do that work.
Yeah, and I do believe that there are some conversations going on right now with BVNPT, which is the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians. So I believe that they're going to be working to try to get them to work with us the same as the nurses. So I know it's in the works. I don't know how long it's going to take or if we're going to get any pushback from it, but I do know that the conversations have already started.
And then I think in the flow, thank you. And then the flow of this paragraph, however, should be changed to so or therefore, because it's a continuation of the same idea as opposed to an opposing idea. Okay. Or because we've repeated some information here, is before, don't do it right away. I'm going to speak it and let's all make sure it makes sense before you erase stuff. So back up at the top, second sentence, naturopathic doctors in California can, according to California Code of Corporations, own a corporation, employ a host of medical professionals. Stop. Skip all the rest of it and then go down to therefore, make it however, even though naturopathic doctors are primary care providers and the law says that they can employ other professionals, we can even get rid of that because we just said that in the sentence before. They are not physicians, so they can't write orders or give directions. NDs, DOs, registered nurses, nurse practitioners, licensed vocational nurses, and other allied health and professionals they may employ unless they're specifically practicing within the very limited scope of a naturopathic assistant. So,
I think
does that sound good? I can remember it. Okay, so take out copy unless the practitioner is practicing within the very limited scope of a naturopathic assistant, and move that down to before changing right now.
Here?
Yeah, we'll fix it up later. And we'll go back up. Can own a corporation and employ a host of medical professionals, including MDs, DOs, nurses.
So this here, host of medical professionals. So did you need all of?
Keep that, okay. Including, oh no, maybe not including. Yeah, period. Right, period, and get rid of the rest of that sentence. Period.
Period out.
And then change your therefore back to however. However, even though naturopathic doctors are primary care providers, and take out the comma, and the law says they can employ other professionals, they are not, quote, physicians, so they cannot write orders or give directions to MDs, DOs, registered nurses, nurse practitioners. Do you want to make a big list or say, and other allied health professionals?
I think we can put in other allied health professionals. Do you want to take out the licensed vocational nurses?
Nurse practitioners are registered nurses, so I don't think we need to specify that?
I think maybe we should just say nurses.
Right, let's just say nurses. Nurses and other allied health professionals. I feel good about that if everyone else does.
I think it should be health professionals, not healthcare professionals, just because that's the term that's used is allied health professionals.
Okay. Any other changes?
This is the moderator.
Sorry.
My apologies. This is the moderator. I just wanted to say you might want to hit save just in case.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I don't need a replay of last night. All right.
There's also, as Dr. Thompson pointed out, the care on the top. The first sentence says other allied health care professionals, if you want to take out the care there.
Yep. All right.
And I think we have professionals really a lot of times in a short space. So own a corporation and employ a host of medical professionals. However, even though naturopathic doctors are primary care providers and the law says they can employ other professionals, they are not physicians, so they cannot write orders or give directions to MDs, DOs, nurses, and other allied health people.
Practitioners?
Yeah. Are they all practitioners? That's good.
I do believe they are.
Okay.
All right. if everybody feels okay with this, we can move to the next bullet, and then we may want to take a couple-minute break. I'm not sure if you want to or not, but we
I
have
think
staff
we
on the
should.
line.
I think this is a good time to take a 10-minute break for people to have bio break, caffeinate, and resume. So it is 10:39. If people could be back at 10:49.
Great.